Hey, CNFers, Creative Nonfiction Podcast is sponsored by Scrivener. Scrivener was created by writers for writers. It brings all the tools you need to craft your first draft together in one handy app. Scrivener won't tell you how to write. It simply provides everything you need to start writing and keep writing. And if you enter the coupon code NONFICTION at checkout, you'll receive a 20% discount on the regular versions of Scrivener for macOS or Windows. That'll buy you some coffee to fuel that writing sesh. If you ask me, some good Java out there. So, whether you plot everything out or plunge in, write, and restructure later, Scrivener works your way.
How am I still writing about this crisis and it seems like nobody is caring enough to help besides the people that are being affected by it?
Well, that's Chess Needham. His partner is Ashley Molesso. Together they are Ash and Chess, and this is the Creative Nonfiction Podcast. Ooh, feel that groove, man. Hey, I'm Brendan O'Mara, host of this here rodeo. Thanks for being here. Thanks for spending the time with us. I mean that. And you know what? You're going to want to keep the conversation going on social media, at CNFPod or at Brendan O'Mara, across the big networks. Email the show with questions or concerns, and even consider leaving the show a voicemail by heading over to BrendanO'Mara.com, and clicking the appropriate button. I'll answer the question on air. You can also email the show, creativenonfictionpodcast@gmail.com as well. I'd love to hear from you. The show is for you. While you're there, sign up for the monthly newsletter to receive reading recommendations, cool articles, writing tips, and what you might have missed from the world of this podcast. First of the month, no spam. Can't beat it. Anyway, Ash and Chess are the authors behind The Gay Agenda, a modern queer and history handbook. It is published by Morrow Gift. It is an incredible work of art and an incredible resource. It's fun and educational. What a world! A little about Ash and Chess. Here's what their website, ashandchess.com, says. Ash and Chess is a cute stationery company run by queer and trans power couple Ashley Molesso, she, her, and Chess Needham, he, him. Based out of Richmond, Virginia, they create greeting cards, art prints that are bold, retro color palettes, and they often use their artwork to make a political statement. It's great stuff. We talk about a bit about their roots, how they met, how they launched their company, and came to write The Gay Agenda, of course. And, of course, you'll hear their combined bookshelf for the apocalypse, so you'll have that to look forward to, as well as my parting shot, the segment formerly known as my long intro. Why wait any longer? Here's my conversation with this power couple, Ash and Chess.
Ash, you go first because your name comes first in Ash and Chess.
Okay. So I grew up in Arkansas. I grew up in Northwest Arkansas. I kind of didn't want to stay there. And so whenever I graduated high school, I moved to New York for college. And the reason I went to New York, I mean, it's funny. I didn't really ever think I wanted to go to New York, but I had family there. And I knew I didn't want to stay in Arkansas, so I kind of was like, I'll go where my other family is.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up in the city, and I went to Fashion Institute of Technology, and I studied textile design, so I kind of always did artsy things. I don't know. There's not much to say about.
That's a pretty bold move, though, to go from, the deep South to, the a fashion capital of the world in a lot of ways.
I don't know, it's so wild. It's so funny, how much I've changed from my first part of my life, 0 years old to 18, and then 18 to 28. It's
to kind of describe that a little bit from 0 to 18. What was what was that transition? That period where you were able to ultimately sort of build up that kind of courage to get out of this place that clearly wasn't resonating with you.
Well, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't really know what was like. I feel like I just had this weird drive inside of me, and I don't want to stay here forever. Like, I hadn't really traveled too much, like, growing up. Like, we kind of, like, as a family, we would take, like, road trips to, like, Florida, or, like, sometimes we would go to California because my parents, like, were in the Navy there, and, like, they had friends there still, so, like, that was as far. And then, like, New York. Well, I guess that is a lot of travel, actually. But I don't know. I just, like, felt that, like, there wasn't anything for me in Arkansas, like, career-wise. I mean, honestly, whenever I was, like, a kid, I didn't know what I really wanted to do. Like, there were times where I was like, I want to be a dinosaur when I grow up. Like, I didn't have, like, a clear, like, idea of what it even meant to be an adult, like, working and everything. But
You just knew that you had to, it was somewhere away from where you grew up.
yeah, so I was like, I want a new, like, I want a new start. Didn't see myself. There's the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, and it's a really big college, and they have a lot of different majors and schools there, but I just was like, none of it interested me, and I wanted to do something creative, something not Arkansas.
Right.
I think, like, I don't know, I try to think, whenever I think about it, I'm like, I'm surprised that I even, like, left sometimes, because, like, I don't even remember what was going through my mind when I was, like, a teenager, like, figuring out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. Like, I just kind of got here, I guess.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How about you, Chess?
Let's see. So I'm from New Jersey, like right outside of New York. So Ash and I met in New York. That's how we first met in Brooklyn. But yeah, I'm from a small, like, kind of suburban town, I guess, in New Jersey called Summit. And I ended up going to New York for college. I went actually first to SVA for photography. And I went there for, like, I think I was there for a year and then half a semester, and then I decided photography was not really what I wanted to do, like, career wise. It probably didn't help that we also had a lot of visiting photographers come in often and be like, it's really hard to make it in the photography world. You're probably not going to do it, or you'll end up shooting, like, wedding photos for your whole life if you want to do something else. Like, they just made it sound really difficult. Um, and then I was
Yeah,
like, you know what, my
real
heart's
supportive.
yeah, exactly.
Wait,
I was
yeah,
like,
let me just cut in. That's what they did at FIT too. Like,
I mean, they're
in
being
I feel like in any creative thing, they're like, well, only like 2% of you are gonna make it. And it's, like, really discouraging. It's insane.
maybe it's like a cover your ass kind of thing where it's like, well, we can't promise these people amazing jobs in their field, so we should at least let them know that it's tough. But I knew I liked it, but it was just, like, not exactly what I wanted to do. But I had been not a great student in high school, and, like, photography was kind of my outlet there and was, like, my skill set. And so I ended up going to school for photography just because I felt like that was what was open for me. After I did my year and a half at SVA, I realized I actually wanted to get into education, and I transferred to NYU and I studied education, specifically special education. And then I actually taught in the New York City DOE for 7 years up until last June, when I finally, they call it resigned. I like to say I retired. We decided to work on Ash and Chess full time, and then we moved down here to Richmond, Virginia after that, which, so that's been, like, the big change for me, because unlike Ash, like, New York City was always available to me. It was like my mom worked there when I was growing up. I would go in all the time as a kid. Like, friends would go in. It was just, like, the place to be, and it was where so many people from my town ended up and probably are still there. So moving down here to Richmond now, which is like the beginning of the South, I guess.
Nice. And so, how did you guys end up meeting?
Oh.
Well, we met on a dating app. We met in 2015. We met on a dating app.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we both almost stood each other up on the first date, but we
Yeah.
didn't. Luckily. Yeah, that's how we met. I mean, we had, like, I don't know, Ash, what, our first date was good, right?
Yeah, so, like, I was on the edge. I was, like, sick of meeting people from the internet when I met Chess, and I almost ditched. I was like, I don't know if I can take another, like, insane person, like, from the internet, because, like, I feel like everyone I was meeting before Chess was, like, complete opposite of, like, what I was, like, even how I live my life, and it was just really like unsettling to be around so many uncomfortable people. And so I almost canceled.
And I had
And
another date lined up, so I almost
yeah,
canceled.
we were both like on the same page. So like we met up like one day after work in Williamsburg, and we like didn't have anything planned, and we just like walked around and like hung out, and then we got a beer, we like went to the water, we went to the park, we played cards, like we did boring stuff, but it was like it was pretty fun. And then like Chess taught me how to eat grass, like how
Oh
to
my
identify
gosh.
grass and like eat it, which is like so weird.
Really? Wow.
But
All
then
right.
here's the kicker. We didn't even kiss on our first date. We were just like so interested in each other, and we're like, whoa.
I
But
was trying to be polite. That's why I like walked
yeah.
Ash home, and then she like lingered on her doorstep, and I was just like, all right, well, see you later. I like called an Uber. I was like, my Uber's here. I gotta go.
And
That's
then that
it.
was the beginning of something beautiful.
That's
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah.
So at what point do you start collaborating artistically in what would turn into Ash and Chess?
On our second date, I taught you how to draw a cowboy
A
hat.
cowboy hat, yeah.
So that was the very beginning of the business.
No,
Okay,
I was
Chess.
like real well, Ash has always been like she's just so creative. It's like insane, and she's just so good at art that I was like, "What? I can't believe this." I remember I don't know if you remember this, Ash, but you drew like a little picture of me and you texted it to me, but I was at my brother's. It was like 3 days after we met. I was at my brother's birthday party, and you like had
Oh
drawn a
yeah.
little
I remember
portrait.
I did it with my neon gel pens.
Yeah, I thought it was so special, and I was like captivated. But Ash had always worked in, like in art and fashion. She was working at a wallpaper designer at the time that we met. And she kept telling me, like, I really want to start a stationery company. I really want to start a stationery company. And I just was like, at first, I was like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. Like, that doesn't sound like a thing to me. Like, I knew of like Hallmark and like I'd seen more kind of like cutesy designs by like Rifle Paper and stuff like that, like big companies. And so I was like, yeah, I don't really understand how this would be something that you would ever do as a job, but it does sound like fun to do. And then Ash took me to, there was this thing called the National Stationery Show. It actually just closed now. Unfortunately, like COVID and all of that didn't really
Oh, I
treat
think
that
it
industry
closed,
well.
but they combined it with New York now officially now, I think.
Yeah, they did. But yeah, Ash took me to that show and we like walked up and down the aisles. It's like this giant convention at the Javits Center where everyone sets up a booth and like you kind of design like a mini store where people can come through and just see all of this cool art. And like we walked through, I saw really cool art, and I also was like, Ash's art is just as cool as this art that I'm seeing here. So then I was like a
Thank
little
you.
bit more, I was a little more open to the idea. And then we kind of just jumped in 2017 was our first show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so then
We like started designing our first set of cards
I think
like
we started like
August
right before that.
2016 is when we got our first 4 cards printed.
Yeah, we didn't know like anything really about the industry. We did a line of yeah, it was 4 cards, and I think we expanded it a little bit by the time of our first show, but like we had no awareness of like how to print cards in like a cost effective way and how to package things. Like everything was just trial and error at that point, but it was fine because I had a job at that time. Like I was a teacher, so I had like a salary and stuff. So we were able to show our stuff at the first show in May 2017, and we got a really good response from it. And then after that, we just kind of like people started to know who we were, like slowly but surely. And then just like every year that we did the show, we got more and more retailers, and it just kind of blew up from there. And then when I quit my job in 2019, it just kind of was like, well, we actually have to make this work as a full-time thing anyway. So yeah, it's just kind of grown pretty rapidly, which is really cool and
That's
fun.
amazing. I was curious as to the evolution of the business too, because it's such a crowded industry.
Hmm.
And so it's hard to stand out, and then to get the traction you need to make it viable. And so it's just to hear the journey of the business and how it actually really kind of took hold kind of quick. Because it's pretty inspiring, and it's just pretty exciting just to hear you guys talk about it.
Thanks. Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, we also like I think that we just tried to make it like we really tried to stay true to ourselves, I guess, like when we first started, because our first four cards were like very calm. They were just like thank you or like with
Yeah.
hearts on it or something like that. And then we were like, well, let's just make like we are a queer couple. Let's make things that are a little bit more like obviously being queer is like seen as political. So we're like, let's make things political and
Yeah.
just see what happens. And people responded well to it. And we're kind of like, we were kind of also like filling a hole, I guess, of cute, but queer, but political, but like edgy and
Yeah.
fun cards too. Like, I feel like we kind of have just like a different design than a lot of what you see. So I think that that definitely helped us a lot.
I had a few jobs like working in like mass market textile design, and like mass market, let me just tell you, it is so depressing.
Right,
Because like
right.
I feel like everybody just really loves these ugly things, and like I had to sit behind a desk for like 2 or 3 years like freelance designing. Like there were some opportunities like towards the end of my freelance career where I got to design really cute things because like trends were evolving, but like for a really long time I had to design like these really ugly like chevron blankets or like medallions, like just like knocked off from like Shutterstock and stuff. It was just like so exciting to be able to make art that you didn't see in like the mainstream. It was like, conversation starter stuff. Oh my gosh, like that's such a wild concept that you would like make this cute stuff, but it's like saying something important instead of just saying like live, laugh, love or whatever. Like it was just like such a breath of fresh air to decide like, oh, we're not going to stick it to like what is safe, because like that's what so many companies do, I feel.
Yeah,
Yeah, like making average stuff for average people is
Yeah.
right.
the very definition of the mass market. So you really have to go to the edges if you want to, make a statement, and even and just to I don't know, to stand out and to find your audience, your smallest viable audience, as Seth Godin might call it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I mean, like even when we started, I remember in our first catalog, we said that we were at the time we had identified as a lesbian couple because it wasn't out as trans yet. But like our first catalog said like, oh, like it's run by a lesbian couple, Ash and Chess, and like people were like, oh my gosh, you can't write that in your catalog. People aren't going to buy your stuff, or like maybe people are going to second guess it. And we're like, okay, but I don't want to sell stuff to people that don't want to buy our things because of who we are.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I think that that actually helped us stand out. I mean, we actually just got, I think one of our first, I think it was 2017. I'm not going to name any names, but there was like a big box retailer that ordered some stuff from us, like ordered a large order from us, and they got some things that were like, I guess maybe seen as like subversive. I don't even remember if it was a
Oh
queer
no,
card
they
or,
they ordered Glad You Came Out, and it's a
right.
card with a closet with rainbow clothes inside of it, and it's just like a coming out card. They
See,
ordered
your
like
memory is so good. Yeah, but they ordered it, but
I
it
was
was funny
surprised they
because,
ordered it because
well,
it's like a very like big, like across like the country, like
well, that's what I'm saying is they ordered it in 2017 and then they didn't reorder it. So we were like, I guess it didn't sell well, like whatever. But they just emailed us back and were like, I think we were ahead of our times or you were ahead of your time and now we want to reorder it. And we're like, okay, 3 years later now it's like, fine. I don't even know if I want to sell it to them again, but
oh my
whatever.
god.
So how did you settle on your particular this retro style? I love it so much, and I just wonder how did that evolve?
Hmm. I've always been really interested in like design from like the 60s and 70s. There's like a lot of really beautiful graphic design, like typography from that era. It's like really psychedelic or like really neon, just fun and bright. And I feel like that has always kind of influenced like my design style. And I know that it's definitely influenced Chess's. But
Yeah, Ash taught me everything about design. So like I feel like we also started off that way and then like Ash taught me a lot about like making a collection kind of where like our cards aren't necessarily in collections, like it's not like oh the flower collection, the gay collection, like whatever, but they are like they go together. And like Ash definitely taught me about how to make them go together and be like a little bit more cohesive that way. So I think starting that way meant that that was kind of like just our go-to style. And now it's like I don't even know if I can design another way. It's just
That's really funny. It's really funny to hear that because like some people will come up to us and be like, "Oh my gosh, like this is so your style. All of these go so well together." And I'm like, "I don't see that. I feel like every single thing that we design is so different from the next and like I don't see them being cohesive." And it's really funny hearing other people think that we have like this set style when I'm like, "We have like 40 different styles." Like,
well, I mean, we always like color match things. Like things go together too. And also like I do all the fulfillment too, so I spend so much time just looking at all of these styles, and I would say like when you look at an order together, like when I pack an order, I end up looking at all of the cards together and they do go well together. So it's just weird. But I'm also looking at them now and I'm like, yeah, I see what Ash is saying where there's like 10 different styles in them, but I would say there's only like one or two cards that we've ever designed that don't go, like straight up don't go. Slash I don't like them. They're the ones I don't like.
How did you get comfortable with the obviously the creative side is there, but the navigating the business side of it, that's often very disparate interests when you're dealing with creative people. So how did you guys navigate that?
Oh my gosh, we
I
hate
tried
it.
to push all of it onto chess.
You did push all of it. That's
Honestly,
why I'm like, I hate it. It's
like
like,
from the beginning, but like we couldn't exactly do that from the beginning because chess had a full-time job the entire time, like from the beginning of the we like when we started Ash and Chess, and I always kind of like either had like a part-time job or like a freelance job where I did work full-time, but like it wasn't all the time. So
mhm.
like generally I had more time to work on like back end stuff of the company. So like we kind of both did it for a while, but like as of lately, I hope Chess is willing to take on.
What do you mean you hope I am? No, like
Thank you.
I enjoy, I don't know. Ash is like obviously really fast at designing and really good at designing. And like if I come up with a concept or like do a sketch, she's able to give like immediate feedback and, helps me work on it too. So like we try to split the design, but I would definitely say like Ash does more design than I do. But like I also I don't know. I think it works well together because I really like doing like order fulfillment. I'm really fast at it. I have like ADHD, so I'm like I could get super focused on something and I could just like pack orders for 5 hours and then realize I didn't eat lunch, but like I got everything out for the week or something. And that's just like I don't know, it's fun for me. I would say definitely the part where we struggle is like just the actual boring stuff like accounting and taxes. So if anyone is listening and they really like that stuff, tell us because we hate it. So we just like
It's
hate doing it.
Yeah, well, it's great to hear you talk about that because so often, people on the show, whether they be freelance, journalists or essayists or anything in between, few people ever even talk about the sort of the bookkeeping side of things or the quarterly filing of taxes kind of things. But that's a very, very real element if you're going to make it as an independent contractor, however that independent contracting manifests itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and it's crazy because it's just like it really is another full-time job. Like it's so time consuming to actually manage all these things and then like you have to research the different tax structures and like we research it and we like think we understand it and then we talk about it again and we're like we have no idea what this is. Like it's so complex and it's yeah, it's not fun. That's my least favorite part.
So talk a little bit about how your wonderful book, The Gay Agenda, came to be. It's got a pretty cool origin story. So so talk about that.
Ooh, so it all started with Instagram.
Love Instagram.
Instagram has been such a great like tool to get freelance work and like opportunities to work with other artists. So I'll start from the very beginning. We actually have done a couple collabs with this book club called Bellatrist, and it's run by Emma Roberts and Kara Price. And they do these like really cool like book picks every month. Sometimes they do 2 books. Anyway, we did a collab and we designed some tote bags for them, like like limited run, like really cute little bags. And this literary agent, saw it on Instagram, and she reached out to us and she was like, "Hey, I represent illustrators. Do you guys want to make a book?" And we're like, "This is like spam email." We're like, "This is garbage. Like, this isn't real."
Because we do get a lot of spam too. That's like, I have a great opportunity for you. Just email me back, and I'll tell you it. And we're like,
Yeah,
what?
it's funny too because they always start with like RE, like, "Did you get my email before?" But like, it's
Yeah.
always the first email. It's like they hadn't emailed us before. It's just a joke. So yeah, so our agent, the wonderful Meg, she I set up a call with her, and I was like, "Let me just check this out to see if it's like real or not." Yeah, so we talked, and she was like, "Yeah, like I found your stuff. Like your stuff is like great. Like, how do you feel about like making a book proposal? Like I work with a lot of artists, blah blah blah, like all this cool stuff." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, this sounds like real." And so like me and Chess kind of like thought about it, and we came up with like ideas of like if we were able to make a book.
Yeah, Meg was like, make a book about anything. Like, we just, like, what I like is your style. So just make a book in your art style. And that was it. So we're like, oh, anything.
Yeah, so
Okay.
like we came up with like a pitch. Like we had a few ideas. Like the one we love to tell people is that like we thought about making like dog fashion throughout history. Or no, what was it? It was like
That was,
fashion
it
throughout
was,
history modeled by dogs.
yeah,
So
we
like,
just
that
were
was
having
an
fun
idea.
drawing pants on dogs because they
Yeah,
just looked so silly.
it just looked funny. We thought about like we do have this idea for like a kind of like a road trip book, but like focused around queer people all over the United States. But that was a little too complicated for a first book. But then we were like, we should make like something really, really gay, because like this is a huge opportunity. If a publisher picks up our idea, like we have the potential to like get some really like important information out there, and like this could be a way to like make people not feel so alone in the queer community. So
Well,
we like landed on the gay agenda, which is kind
yeah.
of like, we imagined it being half history and half handbook, but it turned out to be like mostly history and then like a tiny bit of handbook.
We were like throwing around all of these ideas too, and I think like ultimately we were like, okay, we have like an audience. At that time it was like a much smaller audience, but we were like, we do have an audience, we do have like all of these things, going for us, and we do have an art style, and obviously, people are drawn to that, but we wanted to use it to actually mean something, because we're like, I don't know, both of us grew up, like, even though I grew up in the Northeast, like near New York City, where everyone imagines that like everyone is gay and everyone is like queer and open and okay with it too, like that was just
Right.
not at all the message that I received growing up. And like that's also just not the message that most people have received growing up. So we were like, we need to just make something that like, one, we wished that we had, because I would have loved to see, like, even if I didn't read the book, just like seeing a book or like normalizing seeing the word gay and not having it be like someone making fun of you, or not having it be like something that people are like, oh don't say that word, like don't talk about that. Like just kind of normalizing and showing our community was something that was really important to us. So that was how we like ended up on making something serious and not just dogs with pants on.
Yeah, and well, and the title of the book too, Ash, it comes from, it comes right from the roots of where you grew up, and it's just like the biggest middle finger to that guy.
Totally.
Oh my
Oh
god,
my
it's just
gosh,
so
wait.
ridiculous.
Yeah, wait, let me just give the listeners a background story on this. So, yeah, like I grew up in Springdale, Arkansas, and we went to church all the time. And we went to this mega church for a while, and like the pastor, I guess, like whenever I thought of like I came up with a name kind of. It's just like, well, I mean, it is the gay agenda, like it's perfect fit, like kind of like taking back that like negative feel it has around it that has been used for so many years. Anyway, I googled the title to see if like there were other books actually called the gay agenda, and what do you know, the pastor of the megachurch that I went to in Springdale, Arkansas wrote a book called The Gay Agenda, Except it was like the subtitle of it was like it's dividing the family, like the nation, and like it's just like really wild. And it's like, I mean, I haven't read the book, but I just enjoyed like
I don't think you
the
need to read it.
reviews.
It's
Like
really
I
too
can
hard to
tell
get.
what it's about. But I was like, you know, it's just it's meant to be. Like we're taking back the gay agenda.
But maybe who across, like, in the course of your research of this book, who stood out to you, and like who really kind of like stuck their sort of claws into you, like that's kind of like that person really speaks to me.
Wow, that's a hard question.
That is hard. It's like, oh, there's so many of them too, where I'm like, I don't need, like, could I pick one person? Because so many people just like, I don't know. I feel like I don't know if we take for granted, but like, yeah, kind of take for granted the fact that like that Ash and I, when we had identified as like a lesbian couple, we could walk around the streets and not be harassed, or like not be guaranteed to be harassed, like maybe be harassed a little bit, but not, it wasn't like as scary, or like take for granted that now I can call up like Planned Parenthood and I can get testosterone from them, and I can like do all of these things that are now open for me, that so many people had to spend so much of their life hiding, and like just existing was so courageous. But like, there's just so many people that I don't even know. I don't know who to choose. I don't want to choose one person. Do I have to choose one person?
Oh no, not at all. You could choose however many that just really, really speak to you, and just, I don't know. Yeah, like you were saying, you wrote this book not to feel alone, not
Mhm.
so other people wouldn't feel as alone. I imagine that in the course of the research of this book too, you also felt less alone yourselves.
I'm a Libra, so I'm like really indecisive too. That's why I'm also like hemming and hawing. But I think I would choose like, I like Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera really stick out to me. And I know that there are a ton of other Black and brown trans women that like I probably don't even know about yet, or that I've learned about since then. But like the reason, like writing about them really stuck out to me, just because they were so revolutionary that they were even cast aside by the queer community. And so it's like their courage is just like it goes beyond anyone else's, in my opinion. And like the fact that they started Star Street Transvestites Action Revolutionaries to try to help other people like them was just like, they, like when you read about them, they had kind of tragic lives where like they really didn't have much, they didn't have much community, and instead of just like wallowing in that, they built it for other people who also didn't have that. Like, so that just is I don't know, they were just really powerful to write about, and really inspirational to write and read about.
I love King Princess, and I
Oh
know
my
that
gosh, you little suck
I
up.
know I'm saying it, but like I just like appreciate them so much because like it's really cool seeing like a younger person like using their platform for like, you know, like awareness of the queer community and like doing all this amazing stuff. And like it's, and then like even the first time I heard King Princess on the radio, I was like, oh my gosh, like I love, like this song is so catchy, like I wish it was like so gay. But then like later on I found out that it was a really gay song, and then I discovered this like really queer artist, and I was just like so floored. I was like, there's like, this never happens, like there's never a great song on the radio and it's like really actually gay. um but like I don't know, like the more that I followed, like it's just like really amazing how like their whole identity revolves around like being out and like being proud and like, you know, like showcasing all these like different types of queers like in their music videos and like just like in their just like life. I don't know, I really think that it's cool, and I really love that like the younger generation is like embracing queerness like so openly, and like it's really awesome that they even have the opportunity to do that, like because, you know, I mean even 10 years ago it was different from how it is now, like on how open you could be with your like sexuality and your like identity and everything.
Over the course of writing the book and researching it, was there anything that really stood out to you and really like surprised you over the course of your research and the writing of the book?
I mean, I think like the thing that surprised me the most was how little I knew of like anything. Like I just, as we were writing it, I felt like every topic was new to me, and that was like kind of eye-opening and almost like embarrassing as a queer person to be like, oh my, like I can't believe that I
Yeah.
actually don't know any, like this is just turning into a giant research project for me because now I'm like realizing that I don't know anything about the queer community. Like I don't know, even when I was writing like the AIDS section, that like I maybe that stuck, maybe that part was like the first like kind of big surprise because it was like I'd always heard people talk about AIDS growing up, and I'd heard like I don't know, I heard like jokes about it on like Family Guy and stuff like that, and like so many, just a lot of jokes about it in general too, of like people being like, "Ew, you have AIDS" or whatever. Like I don't know why people thought that was a funny thing to say, but I feel like people would always just talk about it, and I knew like that it was a crisis, and like I'd heard the words AIDS crisis used together, but I think I didn't realize like how much of a crisis it was and how much it really truly devastated the queer community until I started writing about it and I was realizing like all of these people watched their friends and lovers die and then watched the government just kind of be like okay with it for so long before any action was even taken. Like we wrote it as a timeline, and I felt like the timeline was like I had to cut it down, but the timeline literally seemed endless. Where it was like, how am I still writing about this crisis, and it seems like nobody is caring enough to help besides the people that are being affected by it.
Yeah, it's crazy because early on in the book too, like in the 50s, they
Hmm.
identified queerness as a mental illness
Right.
then, and even that took a long time to finally be debunked.
Yeah.
And so much of that is just so embedded in the fabric that the policymakers are just like, I don't know, just hoping it'll just go away and we don't have to talk about it, and just further marginalize
Right.
these further marginalize people who are just the other in their mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think what was really interesting for me, like while writing the book, I mean, like researching and everything, I was like really, I had no clue. A lot of people know about Stonewall. Like Stonewall is like a really like popular reference point for like queer history. And then like people know that like, it was like the police, like it was like they had raided this bar and like people were like finally fighting back. But like I didn't realize that being queer was illegal. Which like saying that out loud is so insane. Like that is, it's just like I can't believe that like they had like these laws where like you had to like wear like gendered clothing. Like if you had like, I don't remember how much it was, maybe like you had to have like at least like 3 pieces of clothing on like that like matched your like sex or whatever, which is like so wild. And like people could get arrested for like wearing like clothes that didn't match their sex, and it was just so strange. I don't even know, like it's still so insane to comprehend that like police would like literally just like go into bars and arrest people, and like it happened for like so there's a lot, like there's like a section on the police raids, and then like we put a few of like the more like well-known like police raids, like the Black Cat, and then there's like the Compton like cafeteria riots and like the Cooper Donuts and stuff. But it was just like that really surprised me, and I didn't realize that like I just didn't realize that like it was like such a thing that you could literally be like arrested and like beaten by like these people who are supposed to be protecting the community. It's just like that was like I still get chills thinking about it. And like I mean, it still probably happens today, but yeah.
Yeah, and to that point of just being beaten, and in the case of Matthew Shepard, like beaten to death in 1998, and the fact that the defense of the murderers
Hmm.
was the gay panic defense was a
Hmm.
thing, and that was going to be the thing that exonerates them. It's just like it's just disgusting to think of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And then also, I mean, like, that's still a defense that is allowed in some states too. And like trans panic, also like, oh my gosh, this person tricked me. I didn't know that I was having sex with a
Jeez.
man when like they have sex with a trans woman or something. It's just like, it's so crazy. And also, the other crazy thing reading about that one in particular is like, if you actually research his death and you try to find information on it too, like, you're bound to come across other people too who are like, then criminalizing or criticizing Matthew Shepard after he's dead too, being like, well, he was on drugs. He wanted to buy drugs from them too. And it's just so crazy because you see that same thing still now. Like,
Oh my
even
gosh,
when
yeah.
we're thinking about like Breonna Taylor's death, so many people are like, her
They try
boyfriend
to
was a
justify
criminal. And like,
it.
yeah, it's just crazy the lengths that people will go to, try to justify violence and hatred against communities, and then also to try to not admit that it's like rooted in racism or homophobia or transphobia or anything like that. It's very frustrating and
Yeah.
horrible.
What is wrong with the world?
Yeah. So, as we kind of wind down here, I don't know if you caught the email I sent you late last night about sort of the, like, pivotal books that
Hmm.
that I like to ask people about, very influential books that you would keep in your pack for, like, the if the apocalypse happens, the zombie apocalypse, and you had to, you only have a few rations, but you know what, you're going to take 5 books with you or so, and maybe between the two of you, what 5 books would you bring with you, and why?
I was like, okay, I saw this email this morning, like right before I went for a run, and then I spent the whole run thinking about it because I'm like a Libra and I'm very indecisive. And I was like, oh my gosh, but what if I really did only have these 2 books? Like, oh, what if I picked the wrong ones? But um, I would think I would pick. Okay, my first one is like, I say this so often that like at this point I'm just sucking up to him, but I would choose Amateur by Thomas Page McBee because this book, like, it literally is my favorite. I don't know if you've read it, but it's a great book, and it's written by a trans man, and it talks just about like masculinity, and it's in the context of a boxing match too, which is like, it's just really interesting to me because I'm trans and I like to do Muay Thai and I like to think about masculinity and gender and all of those things. And like, it's one of those books where like every time I read it, I get something new from it. Like the first time I read it was before I was out, and then I started, I was like thinking about it, and now I read it now, and I have a different view on masculinity because I'm seen as more masculine. And so like that's just a really interesting one that I feel like I could read and reread. And then I think the other one I would pick, I'll do two for now, and then if I have to do another one, I'll probably stress about it. But the other one I would pick is probably, I would choose like a children's book because I'm a total nerd and I used to read like all day, every day, and I just like love children's books. And I think maybe if I had to pick a children's book, I would pick The Twits by Roald Dahl, even though I'm pretty sure that Roald Dahl has actually been like outed as probably like racist or homophobic. But this book just, I thought it was so funny when I was growing up, and I just remember reading it and rereading it so many times. So hopefully I would enjoy it in the apocalypse too.
Okay, so I've been thinking about it. So I really love fiction, so I'm sure that, well, I just wrote down my list that I've been thinking of, and like all of them are fiction. So like my number one would be The Hike by Drew Magary.
I knew you were gonna say that. I
Okay,
was gonna say it.
I love it so much because it reads like a dream. Like, you know how you have those weird dreams and like you're one place and then like the scene changes and suddenly you're somebody else but you're still also yourself, and like all these things are happening. It's just like such a wild book. You could probably read it over and over again and still like find like new things each time. And it's just like it's really weird, and I love that because there's just so many different things going on in it, so it doesn't seem like one like long line of like story. It's like a story with like a bunch of different branches coming out of the storyline, so it's like that one is my absolute favorite. And then I think I would go with Vampires in the Lemon Grove by Karen Russell, and it's a book of short stories. But I really love Karen Russell because her stories are just like so weird and magic. They like make me feel like it's Halloween like all year round. Like it's not even Halloween vibe. It's just like kind of like eerie, but like really, really good. And like not scary, but like just like odd. But I really love her writing. So definitely a short stories book. So I have like multiple stories in one book.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
good call. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know. I know we have one book left between the two of us, but I mean, I guess just in general, I would probably bring like an art book so we could have something pretty to look at. Yeah, I have this really cool book. I actually just saw someone post a picture of it on Instagram yesterday, but it's this book. I think it's called like the Fireside like book of songs for children, and it's illustrated by John Alcorn, and he's like this illustrator that has a lot of really amazing like psychedelic art from like the 60s, like the 70s and stuff. And it's like that classic, like, I don't even know, like maybe like it's not really folk art, but it's like psychedelic folk art. That's what it reminds me of. But
Yeah,
like
it's really
it's just
cool.
filled with like these children's songs, like the music notes and everything, accompanied by like a really awesome illustration that's just like so wild and wacky. But I like that. I think I would bring that just so I could like
That's a
have
good
the
pick.
option of like music and looking at pretty colors.
Nice. I love it. And I love the book you guys wrote. It's so great. And especially the glossary of terms at the end, I think is like super, super helpful just to know what words are, taboo or were once accepted and are now and now they're offensive. I think it's just really good to see the spectrum of those, of the vocabulary. And it's just, it's very fluid and evolving. So it's great to know the vernacular so you can be the best ally possible. And in these times, it was just really educational for me, just the history part, but also the vernacular that you bring to it. So I just think it's a great and important book that you guys done. I really have to commend you on that.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
Of course. And now, where can people, find you online, of course, and get more familiar with your work, and then hopefully pick up the Gay Agenda?
Ooh. So we are really active on Instagram. That's like basically like we have Instagram, which is just our names, Ash and Chess. And our website is the same. It's ashandchess.com. And like that's where like you can buy the book from us, which I highly recommend because we're the only place aside from Mongrel in Richmond. It's like a store. We're the only place that sells them signed, so like you could get an actual signed copy directly from us. But yeah, we post all of our art on our website and our Instagram, and like yeah, we also like often update our stories so we can like be hanging out like right in your living room with you basically. But yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast, and thank you for the work you guys have done, and best of luck going forward.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It was really fun. I liked this podcast.
That was a good time, if I do say so myself. Thanks very much to Scrivener for the support. Be sure to head over to their website and redeem that nonfiction coupon code. Gets 20% off. I like it. And also, thanks to Ash and Chess for making the time. And, of course, thank you to you, kind listener, for sticking around and spending this time with this community and spending a little time with me. It means the world. Fist bumps to you. You should know that I published the final episode of Volume 2 of Casualty of Words just the other day. Finishing the rewrite of this latest draft of Tools of Ignorance put a cap on Volume 2 of Casualty of Words. I read a pretty raw journal entry. I'll spare that for you here, but you might want to go check that out, wherever you get your podcasts. It's a writing podcast for people in a hurry. It's a thing. It's usually under 5 minutes. This one tops out around 5 minutes because I read a pretty long journal entry, but it's also the sort of volume closer of that particular round of Casualty of Words. It's pretty dig. I dig it. Next round, I don't know what I'll talk about. I have some ideas, but then I'll cross that bridge once I get there. or fall into the river. How's your project? How's your essay? How's your book? Is it coming along? It's a mess, right? Don't I know it, friend? But I know you can finish it. I mean, it's going to look like garbage for a while. But that's the nature of this game. It just is. Know that you're not alone. The writing looks really bad until it doesn't. Sometimes it just goes on being bad. And that's been my experience for several years. But that's how you get good. You get comfortable writing shitty-ass sentences and shitty-ass words, and eventually it just kind of starts getting better. Got to trust me on that. Highly skilled people at times need that extra bit of help, an accountability coach, to see things that can't be seen by the writer. I'd be thrilled and honored to serve you in your work. You know that. Time with me gets you Skype calls, transcripts of the calls, so you can use that for notes, detailed critiques, several back and forths, and me checking in on you to spot you through those grueling sets. Email me, Brendan O'Mara. Not Brendan O'Mara, come on now. Brendan at BrendanO'Mara.com. Hey. And we'll start a dialogue. Be cool. Be cool to help you with your work. Speaking of lifting, a week ago, I was squatting a very light weight for me, just 205 pounds. I wasn't going for it yet. At the very bottom of the movement, on the very first rep, a muscle in my back, my right erector spinae, I think, it pulled so unbelievably bad, I really hope it's a muscle. But I felt it pull, like I felt it stretch. It was more than just an acute pain. It was like dough stretching or something. It was, but I couldn't dump the weight because I didn't have that kind of a squat rack, and it's just in my garage. So I had to squat that up and still rack it. So after I wrenched the muscle, I still had to power that weight up. Oh, it's bad. I kind of collapsed on the ground after that and just kind of rolled around in agony. I wasn't even doing stupid weight. It wasn't even stupid weight, which is all the more frustrating. That said, I'm pretty laid up, limping around a bit. Back injuries don't go away. They hang around. They're so nagging. Anyway, so here we are. Oh, today is my 10th wedding anniversary, the September 25th. Can you believe that? That went by in a flash, those 10 years. My goodness. Where were we at the time? We got married in Boonville, North Carolina at Ragapple Lassie Vineyards. We were living in upstate New York at the time, 2010 in Saratoga Springs. 2012, we would have moved to Boston Lake, near Saratoga Springs. From there to Rahway, New Jersey in 2014. Lawrenceville, New Jersey, 2015, 2016. Then Oregon, 2016 till the current day. Crazy, right? Anyway, it's crazy. The person I was 10 years ago is such a distant, different dude. But one thing remains true between the two. If you can do, interview. See ya!